One of my favorite dishes is a spicy stewed pork shoulder from a restaurant in my wife's hometown. This is my take on guisado de puerco based on recipes from Jalisco's capital, Guadalajara. This isn't a green chili stew like you would see in New Mexico or Arizona, but one packed with tomatillos and arbol chilies. The results are very, very delicious. We'll start with the salsa that becomes the braising liquid for the pork. Remove the paper from around 6 tomatillos and wash off the sticky liquid. Place those on a sheet tray as this is going to be roasted before it enters the braise. It just gives it extra flavor that way. I like to include 1 regular plum tomato here for a little bit of sweetness. Add half a yellow onion to the tray along with 4 cloves of peeled garlic. For the chilies, the blend I like is around 6 arbols with the seeds removed and about 2 guajillos. The arbols are pretty spicy and the guajillos bring a lot of color, a little richness, and a little sweetness. Guajillos may honestly be my favorite all-around chili. This whole tray goes into the broiler, but keep an eye on the chilies. If they burn, you can't really use them, they're gonna taste too bitter. Take them off the tray before anything else. This is me taking all the chilies off, but the rest of the veg still needs some time. I like a nice char on the tomatillos before the tray comes out. The onion almost never really gets dark in the oven though, and that's okay with me. Into a blender, add the broiled veg, the chilies, some chicken powder, or just, salt if you don't have it, Mexican oregano, cumin seeds, and then some water just to make sure it blends. The liquid amounts are going to be adjusted in the braise itself. We can fix that later, so don't really worry about the amount of water here. Blend that until nice and smooth. This spicy salsa is very essential for the pork. We can just set it aside for the moment though. In the back here, I've got a Dutch oven over medium heat because the stove takes a minute to heat up. It'll be nice and hot by the time I cut this pork into pieces. This is roughly 2.5 pounds of pork shoulder sliced. I buy it sliced because it's boneless and Costco has it in bulk. I like to slice these into large pieces because they're going to shrink considerably in the braise. These fattier pieces are going to be pretty much falling apart by the end. Look at that, all the pork is ready and the pan is hot, so let's cook these bad boys. The state of Jalisco is responsible for one of the internet's favorite dishes, birria. The cooking style is very similar here. It's the same thing that you'd see with birria, meat stewed in chili sauce. It totally makes sense. Guisado is the word for stew. It's a beautiful technique from a beautiful region. Get the pork chunks into the hot pan without oil. There's enough fat in these pieces to properly brown the outside. Even though the pan's dry in the beginning, the fat's gonna melt out and we'll be fine. All we're doing here is adding a little bit of color, but most importantly, the brown bits on the pan will help flavor the braising liquid. Focus more on the brown bits of the pan than the actual color of the pork. If the pan is almost burning, get the pork out and get the next batch in. Once all your pork is brown, I like to add a splash of water to scrape up the fond. I like to pour the salsa in, and then to get my water level right, I actually just add water to the blender and pour it out. That helps clear out any of the salsa from the blender, and then all that salsa goes into the braise rather than into my sink. Add the ground pork, and then any juices that have accumulated on the plate. Now is the time to judge your liquid levels. If it's looking too dry, add some water. If it's not, don't. Salt is definitely needed at this stage as well, as the only salt so far we've really added is from the chicken powder. Bring this up to a nice burbling simmer on the stove and then place it in a 300-degree oven with the lid slightly ajar. This needs about 3 to 4 hours for the pork to become really nice and tender. Some of the fattier pieces will be tender earlier, but the leaner pieces may need a little bit longer. I like to check it every hour or so just to make sure things are progressing nicely. While that's cooking, I like to make a batch of fresh flour tortillas. Because this dish is based on a stew from Jalisco, corn tortillas would definitely be traditional. Flour tortillas are a little bit more of a northern Mexico thing. However, I'm trying to emulate a dish I eat in Mississippi, usually served with flour tortillas. I realize that's not traditional, so please make corn if you prefer those. A long time ago, I made a video about my tortilla recipe, but I've made quite a few adjustments since then. These are really soft, pliable, and very delicious. Into a large bowl, measure out 600 grams of all-purpose flour. To that, add 6 grams of baking powder and 9 grams of kosher salt. Mix that into the flour so it's evenly combined, and then add 70 grams of lard or shortening. Lard is going to be very delicious, but shortening is going to work for any vegetarians out there. Use your fingers to mix that in until there are no larger pieces of fat. Now I'll get 290 grams of hot tap water and mix that into the flour and lard with a stiff spoon. This dough is going to be very shaggy and a little bit hard to mix, honestly, hence the spoon. Once it's almost together, I use my hand to knead a little bit until there are no dry patches. From there, I like to cover it and let it rest for 30 minutes. This is going to let the flour hydrate and some gluten is going to automatically start to develop. This is also going to make the dough much easier to work with, so it's got a lot of benefits to it. This is the dough after 30 minutes. It should have a little bit of stretch, but some kneading is definitely going to help it out. Put it on a floured surface and knead for a few minutes until the dough is, pretty smooth. From there, cut it into 60-gram balls, which should be about 15 dough balls, 16 if you're being exact with your measurements. Use your hands to press and knead the dough balls until they're smooth and, balled. These need another 30 minutes to rest covered, but then they're ready to roll. I find that as I make these more and more, the resting is the most important step. It sort of evens out any inconsistencies and creates a really soft tortilla. I'm not the best roller in the world, but I've picked up a few tips and techniques I can share with you. I like a cast iron ready and hot so that when the tortillas are rolled, they can go straight onto the pan. Keep something handy to warm the tortillas in when they're finished. I like a Dutch oven with a towel. I use my left hand to hold the top edge of the tortilla and my right hand on the rolling pin. I'm basically rolling the bottom half a little and then turning the dough 90 degrees. If you care about a nice round tortilla, this helps a lot. At a certain point, the shape is basically set, and I begin rolling it to thin it out. Using 2 hands on the pin, work the dough towards you again from the middle. Keep turning the dough 90 degrees and rolling, and the tortillas will get thin enough to see through. Once I can really see my cutting board, I know it's thin enough. This should puff up really nicely when it's cooked. These only need about 45 seconds to a minute on each side in the hot pan. They blister pretty quickly, but the Dutch oven kind of ensures that they soften and steam throughout. That gives you that beautifully tender and silky mouthfeel. Continue working through all the tortillas. Usually the time it takes to cook one is about how long it takes me to roll another. But just keep an eye on the temperature of your pan. If they're getting blackened or crispy, the heat is a little bit too high. I'm not a big store-bought versus homemade guy, but I really think tortillas made at home are substantially better than store-bought ones. The difference is very noticeable. Any that I don't eat today can be frozen and then defrosted one at a time when you need them. So this is our guisado at 3 hours, and I want it slightly more tender. You can definitely tell the flavor has gotten richer and the chilies have mellowed out a little bit, but the tenderness isn't quite where I want it, so back in for 30 more minutes. This last bit really ensured that each and every pork morsel was tender and delicious. I wish I had remembered to get lime, but rice vinegar is definitely gonna work in a pinch. There's a ton of pork and vegetable mass in here, so be sure to salt it heavily. Serve this up with those tortillas, some beans if you got them and you want a really nice full meal, and get ready to sweat a little bit. The arbols really permeate the sauce and make everything really special. The tomatillos bring a little bit of acid for the base, but really you're getting tons of delicious chili flavor. This is one of those warm, stick to your ribs fall meals, and I really hope you try it soon. I'm Cameron Marty, and I'm here to show you incredible regional dishes from all over the world. If you're into that, go ahead and subscribe. Massive shout out to the amazing people supporting me directly on Patreon through patreon.com/Cameron Marty. They get some cool benefits for supporting the channel, and I get to keep making videos like this, so it's a win-win. Check it out and consider becoming a patron. Now, if you need some sweetness after all that spice, my pumpkin pasty video is perfect for you. I think you're really gonna like it, especially in this fall season. Thank you so much for watching. Cheers.